Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shannon Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology coach, and personalized learning coordinator for my district.
And I'm her producer/husband, Fuzz Martin.
Yay, you.
Hey, yeah.
So today we're talking about, it's going to be my first themed episode, I guess. It's kind of, I thought about not my themed episode, my first class themed episode, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Ish. We had talked about a little bit like teaser in season 2, episode 1, that this season I'm going to have some episodes that will be focused on specific classes. And so while you can use a lot of these technology pieces in other classrooms, I'm going to focus on computers class to begin with. This year I've taken on the adventure of teaching a computers class. I have coached the other teacher who has taught it before, and we've put things together, but it's the first time I'm actually teaching this specific class. So I'm trying out a whole lot of new things and all kinds of websites.
I'd be curious to know what a computers class is like these days, because when I took computers class, it was in I remember it was 1991, and I had Mrs. Raisin as my my typing teacher. My keyboarding was the name of the class. Okay. Yes, and we also had, we had some in other classes we had some instructions on some basic coding and things like that, but it was just a part of science class, I even think, back then. And
well, that would be different too. Coding then is way
that's what I'm saying. What
it is now.
Well, I'm just curious as to what it would be like, and since kids are so exposed to technology now, and compared to what we were when it was just kind of up and coming,
right?
So what are we talking about today?
So there are so many things. So that's the other thing too is, so I've started creating this computers. I worked on building this computers class, and it's kind of trial and error. I know the end goal, and I want my students to be interested and have buy-in as to what they're doing. They need to be doing computer stuff for a purpose. But obviously there's standards and curriculum that you have to follow. And I'm just briefly scratching the surface today because there's so many different categories that go into computers now. So today I'm just talking about basic typing websites and just a few of the coding websites that are out there now. There are so many. And remember, my focus was always free technology. So this isn't even getting into the paid stuff that you have access to. And then eventually we'll talk about internet safety and all of those kinds of things, and we'll do Photoshop. There's so many different pieces. So today, the computer's focus is going to be typing and coding, but then it'll definitely, we're going to have a computers episode 2 down the road, and probably computers episode 7.
Right.
There's just so many topics to cover.
Yeah. There are tons of tools for that.
Yeah.
Out there, and most of them, I shouldn't say most of them are free, but
a lot of them are.
A good big chunk are free, yeah.
Yeah. And some, okay, so let's just start with the basics. So typing.com, I think most people are pretty familiar with typing.com. If not, typing.com is straightforward if you want your kids to work on actual finger keyboard skills practice. Now what's cool and has changed over the time, typing.com has always been typing, but now it syncs with Google Classroom.
Okay.
So everything's set up. You can track all your students. You can see where they're at levels. So I don't even let my students start at beginner. We start at intermediate levels for typing. But then you can set up a whole bunch of different things with your students. So if you pull up your students, you can see what level they're at, advanced, intermediate. You can see what lessons they've moved on to.
Still go by keystrokes and stuff?
Yep, they do keystrokes. And you can see all of their information. So everything's laid out. So I can just look at a kid and see, okay, you spent 2 hours typing the last week and you have gotten this far and you can type this fast, and like you can move on to like there's other programs in here, so it's not just you can set it up for just typing with your students, but you
Right.
also can then have access to other things. And they've added in now like blogging and coding and stuff like that. So typing.com starts as free. You can upgrade and like add things to your typing.com accounts too. So it's not just typing, but you can use it for just typing, I guess, if that makes sense. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of nice that I can see all my students, like they were on 3 days ago or they were on 2 days ago, which means that they were like typing over the weekend.
Nice.
And then I can just click on the kid and see what they've done, how far they are in progress with the letters. You can see home keys, you can see all that kind of stuff, and then you can see custom lessons, and then you can see coding essentials, and then you can see reinforcement where they actually like practice it. And there's stories, like there's so many different things that are added in, which is pretty cool. So typing.com, if you're not already using it or you used it a long time ago, they have definitely like brought this baby back with like skill practice that's worthy of practicing. And I guess I should throw out there too, I talked about EduBlogs last season a little bit, but I do have my students blog, like authentically blog to practice their typing skills.
Okay.
That's kind of how they type
like
in my
journaling
class.
or just
I give them a prompt.
Okay.
And they have kind of a rubric based on like actual blogging things. Like they have to put media aspects into it. They have to like tie things in. And I told them like I want their authentic voice to be heard. I don't want this to be just like I'm typing because this is what my teacher wants me to say. So my kids
and
blog,
EduBlogs is the one that's WordPress based, right?
correct, and it's free. And as a teacher, all my students are synced to my blog, so I can pull them all up, and then they all kind of have. I can oversee like their parameters and stuff. So that's really kind of cool. So that's where we start with actual typing in my class. But then typing.com is kind of like that backup for basic skills because they still need some basic skills when it comes to typing, so we're not hunting and pecking things down.
Right.
Along with typing.com, another website that's similar is Typing Club.
Okay.
As you were kind of pointing out, they have a super cute logo.
Yes. Yeah.
But typing.com Typing Club is similar to typing.com, where you can set your students up and they have like this basic keys practice, and then they've got the games to practice it. To me, looking at it, it's kind of going through it. It seems a little younger, I guess.
Okay.
Not that typing.com is that much older, but this just the way you kind of work your way through it. I could see it going at lower levels very easily.
Sure.
And then they can pick and choose and go through their lessons and go through earning badges and all that kind of stuff. So they're able to do that in Typing Club.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, they earn it's gamified.
Yeah. Yep. And so
you can be a fairy typist, fiery typist.
Fiery typist.
I'm looking across way at yours.
Yeah.
The heavyweight, the sprinter.
Yeah. 5-day streak. So they do have badges and stuff to earn in Typing Club, which is pretty cool. And if you have students that definitely kind of glom onto the gamifying stuff, that is definitely a good option. And again, this is just basic typing practice, nothing overly snazzy. And then Nitro Type is...
That's like a real game.
Okay, so like Nitro Type, if you're not familiar, most people I think are, but Nitro Type is where... However fast and accurate you're typing, that's how fast and accurate your car drives around a racetrack.
Yeah.
And the more accurate and the more races you win, the points you earn, and then you can upgrade your cars, and then you can have faster, cooler cars, and all kind of stuff. We have actually stopped letting the middle schoolers in our school use Nitro Type because they were so competitive with their typing.
Yeah.
We couldn't get them to focus on anything else. So that kind of ended at the end of last year.
Really? Okay.
As computer teachers, we kind of stepped in this year and we're like, does anyone... the kids are more than welcome. Like, you can practice all you want at home. Like, good for you. But our students in particular became so consumed with the competition of it,
right,
that it took away from
other lessons and things.
Yeah, and just there's so many other things to be doing out there than Nitro Type, and I'm glad
but
your
school district has the fastest typers in the state.
So there's other things to be doing.
Is that on the standardized tests?
No, it's not. And no real problem solving there. Just type really fast.
Yeah.
So we kind of it's cool and it's fun. Like, I've encouraged kids over the summer, like, go sit on Nitro Type. If you're going to be gaming something, you can practice. But it is kind of addictive for some of the kids. Totally. So Nitro Type is out there.
Now I want to play.
Okay, well, we'll have a competition later.
Nitro Type myself away.
Who can type just like GeoGuessr will compete
in
Nitro Type.
Yeah.
And see how that goes. So, so those are just a few, and again, just scratching the surface of some of the typing things out there.
Yeah.
Like, I can only talk about so many things. It
was a few months back, but we have a private group Facebook page for our business and for all the employees. And for a while, we were going around doing this one typing test just to see how fast we could type. And I'm pretty high up there. I'm not the highest at the agency, but
nice.
I can hold my own.
Good.
Yeah.
Who can type the fastest?
There are a couple of account managers who are
like really good.
Yeah, younger ones too.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, some less arthritis and stuff in their hands for now.
They're not squinting at the screens. Can't see the letters.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
So the second thing we're going to talk about today is coding, and again, this is like scratching. Yeah,
there's so much.
There's so much out there. It like coding itself I could probably do a whole season on coding on computers. And I guess I didn't preface this, but this is in the computer lab in my district. We have desktops for our students for the computer lab.
Okay.
Or if something's not going right, we use the Chromebooks.
You guys using what kind of desktops are you guys using? Are they on Macs or are they?
No, they are not Macs. They are PCs. They've been around for a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Big clicky keyboards.
Sure are. So clickety clacking with those typing games.
Yeah, they help you nimble up those fingers when you get
but in all the classrooms, most of our classrooms, we have Chromebooks. So the kids use both. But in computers class, that's what we're working with. So, again, pulling up the free sites and seeing what like we've been working with. And a few of these I've actually used previously. I would tie them into like my enrichment classes or stuff like that. So you can definitely use these coding sites in other classes for sure. The first one is code.org, which I think is very familiar to most people, as we're setting up, like from a computers teacher perspective. It's kind of nice because there's a formal curriculum that's built in, like standards-based, which is nice. And we, as a team, decided, well, we're going to use bits and pieces of this curriculum that we think are relevant. The lessons are put together, like the student work, it's like laid out really nicely.
Okay.
Like students in code.org, you connect it to your Google Classroom. So like I have all my students loaded in, which is really nice. And from there, then, you as a teacher are able to assign lessons at grade level. So you can pull up the middle school lessons. And so computer science discoveries for this school year, 1920, like the first unit is problem solving and computing. And it kind of goes through like interactive collaboration, like introducing computer science. And then there's unit 2 is web development, and unit 3 is animations and games, and unit 4 is the design process, and unit 5 is data and society, and like unit 6 is physical computing. So what's nice is not that all my lessons are based around this, but it's a starting point, like set up where I can go to the unit, the lessons are set up, and my students can work through them at their own pace. And I can set up who's working on what or see what they're interested in. So it kind of just introduces kids to the work, and then everything's set up for you. There's even like videos set up and stuff. So as a teacher, even if you're just using as supplementary material, it's really nice because it's all laid out there for you.
Yeah.
So if you're a new teacher, like jumping into this, or if you've like been given bits and pieces of this before, it just kind of is very well organized, and you can assign lessons to your students. So if you're stuck or if you're gone for a few days, you need someone else covering computer class, you'd be like, here's the lessons, like have your students work through them.
Sure.
But there's also then code.org has everything in it too. The kids can code. My kids are building Minecraft games. Like they can code then all kinds of fun and interesting things for them as well. So it just has a lot to offer from both the teacher side and the student side.
And this is the organization that does the Hour of Code too.
Correct.
So, and I think you've talked about that before, at least to me, about kids do an hour of code and things like that.
Yeah, I've used the hour of code in my other classes. So like in social studies and in my enrichment classes, I've done hour of code. Even in my like homeroom kind of time.
Yeah.
We do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. It's just
to introduce them.
Right. Just 1 hour's worth of training to get you up and coding.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool. The other one I want to talk about is Made with Code. Google has created it, and they've made it. It's Made with Code is super cool.
Okay.
I've used it before in my enrichment classes, and it's kind of is meant to bring girls into coding.
Okay.
But anybody can use it. Like,
sure.
Anybody who wants to use it is, there's cool things out there for everybody. If you look at it, though, you can just tell by the setup that they're encouraging girls to get into coding.
Yep.
And there are really cool projects you can create. There's a whole, like, Mary Poppins Returns thing, which is kind of fun because I watched that today. But designing your own emoji holiday, like, cards and greetings. And they have... like little things you make teacher appreciation cards, and just
nice.
It's doing coding, but in a very fun, non-threatening way. And I think of it as like craft projects, or like there's fun little, like there's one you can pull up and it's like LED dress code and fashion, and you like design this dress and you add like LED lights to this little black dress, and then you make it like your own. So there's just kind of fun, I almost like crafty, but it's kind of crafty in a way, but using code. So I feel that anybody can kind of jump in on this. There's just so many options. You can make a Yeti dance, and you can make a gardening robot, and it's a lot of fun to play around with. So I would encourage anybody to play around with that, even if you're not going to use it necessarily in the classroom. You can sit around and putz and make things, which is pretty fun. So that's Made with Code by Google.
Okay.
So that's that one. Again, I feel like I'm just like rattling them off. I have seven.
Yeah,
I have 7 things to talk about.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
The other one that I think a lot of people are familiar with, but if not, here you go. It's Scratch.
Scratch.
And Scratch is super easy. The kids create accounts, but they, it's kind of like cartooning with code.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's lots of different choices on Scratch, but probably the most popular one that my students use is where they get cartoon characters and you click create, and then you get to make your characters like look how you want them to, and they can move and they can dance and they can do all these kind of things. So it's a fun way to teach coding with kids. Again, very like low pressure. And it's cool. They have like the create area you can explore and like see what other people have done, like creating with coding. They give you a whole idea section where you can try out different activities, and you can make music, and you can do various different games that you can create. You can make stories. So it's really neat how I like how they've made coding so friendly for students.
Yeah. Versus
like you were talking about when you were in high school.
Right. No, exactly.
Like coding was like very much like inputs, outputs, like 1 0 1 1 0.
Yep. And yeah, like H line 3, 200, and then the color code. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's just now the kids see it almost as a game. Like
actually, I remember now that we're saying that, I remember being actually in elementary school. We were learning how to code on an Apple IIc, and we used to have grid paper, and to write out. So we would draw a picture. Like I remember making the Statue of Liberty, and then we had to code the picture using like every line.
Wow.
And now they're like showing how to, like, hey, 3 clicks, I can make this robot dance. You know?
Yeah, it's just like drag and drop these little boxes, and look, they connect, and now it does everything. It's interesting that you say that, though, because as we talk about, like, I've mentioned before, the Fanic robot, it's very much like jogging the robot in old school code, and it's different because it's industrial. But the CNC machines that we also work with, we teach the kids on graph paper, even like this is how you need to type this in to make the graph, like that kind of thing.
Right.
Like, it's still out there, but these just get kids kind of bought into what it's more to make it more fun. So yeah, Scratch was that one. And then I'm going to give a little shout out here. So I was on Twitter where I gather a lot of information. I feel like Twitter is, as a teacher, if you're not on Twitter, you should be on Twitter. It's the biggest, like, professional learning network. Like, it's amazing. So anyway, I'm gonna give a little shout out to D. Ross Kalman. I think it's how you pronounce her name.
Okay.
She has this super cool little website she put together for her students. She's a computer, like, she teaches computers and other things, middle school. I think I gathered from her information, but she has created a super fun website and fantastic resource for teachers of all kinds of websites you can use for computers. And I had never heard of Code Maven before. Like, maybe I had seen it, but I'd never actually tried it. But Code Maven is what I learned about this week, my little learn for this week.
Yes.
And literally, it's like a anime character.
Yep.
And you just click on the box, and you have to read what she gives you for directions. And there's lines of code, and she just tells you to adjust numbers. And then as you adjust the numbers, you can then see the boxes change on your screen.
Yep.
So for me, this was like the coolest thing just because it is so basic.
It's super visual, but shows you the code next to it.
But it shows exactly, like, by clicking this number on the code, this shows you what happens.
Right.
And while it's like super, super simple, sometimes I think the kids get all caught up in the cartoony and the cutesy and look what I've done.
Yep.
And this is just straight, here's a line of code, you change the number, this black box changed.
Right.
Like, here you change this line of code, this black box changed. And for some students, I feel like this is the most clear way for them to see what happens when you're writing a line of code. Anyway, I was like, wow, that's so, like, straightforward and not complicated, but it gets the message across, I think, is a great starting point for kids who just to see what happens. Anyway, you just click what the cartoony person says, add the line of code, click cartoon, and the cartoon doesn't even, like, correct you if you're wrong or not. It just kind of, like, shows you what you did. Look, any ideas? Click it again. I just thought that was interesting. So thank you to her and all of her resources. And those are my 7 websites.
Yeah,
today.
you got through those. Actually, I'm impressed by how quickly we got through them. That Scratch website is from MIT. It's pretty. I think that one's pretty interesting when you dig into it. It's a little bit more cartoony though, and or can be. And they got the little cat as their little guy. And
there's other things you can change the cat to, like, other characters. Like,
they've got projects that kids have coded that are like there's one on the homepage of a girl eating a donut that's pretty intense. So
like, kids can build on those websites, but it's very. I'm glad that they're making code so accessible to kids. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just, like, harnessing all of them. And that's, again, what we touched on 4 of them. I have a list of probably, like, 40. We won't spend all
Well, the
day
good
long
news is
talking about
we still have 23 episodes at least left in this season.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about coding every single week.
No, but we could if we wanted.
But we won't.
We'll
spread it out.
Yeah. There are lots of other tech tools for teachers that we can talk about.
I know, and I have so many for each subject. So we might have to have a part 1, 2, and 3 for every subject that we talk about.
Or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Whatever. We'll just we'll evolve it.
We'll see what happens. And
this all of these technology. That's the cool thing about technology. It's always changing, and there's always more of it right behind you.
Yeah, this is true. Well, if you haven't tried one of these sites, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with at least 1 or 2, but if you haven't tried them, go check them out.
Okay.
Expose your students to them, because I think they're pretty straightforward, and I think that a few of them would be very beneficial to your students. So try them out. Let me know what you think. Again, I'm just scratching the surface with my new computers class, so throw me something if you got something cool to try.
Yeah, definitely. And all right, well, cool. We'll check in again next week.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me at Twitter at SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in the episode, visit smartnwi.com at the EdTech Directory.
Yes.
New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed in this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we hope they will do things.
We hope they do. Thanks.
We hope they work for you. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.